The deep silence of space was broken by a faint signal. It was weak but clear, traveling across thousands of light years to reach Earth. In the United Earth Defense Command Center, alarms began to sound. "Admiral Miller, we have picked up something unusual," said Lieutenant Davis, his eyes fixed on the glowing screen. "It seems to be a distress call, but not from any human ship." Admiral Jack Miller walked across the command center with quick steps. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face marked by years of hard decisions. His blue uniform showed many medals that told of his past battles. "Show me," he ordered. The large screen on the wall lit up with strange symbols. They moved and changed, unlike any human language. Below them, the computer tried to make sense of the alien words. "The translation program is working on it, sir," said Davis, "but we can tell it's definitely an SOS." Miller crossed his arms and watched as the computer did its work. After a few minutes, words began to appear. "Help us. The Vrek are killing our people. They destroy our worlds. We cannot fight them. Anyone who hears this, please help the Lumini." The room fell silent. This was the first time humans had received a clear message from another intelligent species. "Where is this coming from?" asked Miller. "About 30 light years away, sir, in the Cygnus arm." Miller nodded slowly. "Call the Security Council. They need to see this now." 6 hours later, Admiral Miller stood before the 12 members of the Earth Security Council. They sat in a half circle, their faces serious in the dim light. "So, Admiral," said Chairwoman Patel, "you believe we should respond to this alien call for help?" "I do, Madam Chairwoman," Miller replied. "We have the means to reach them with our new jump drives. We have the ships. And if someone is out there killing entire species, perhaps we should be concerned about our own safety too." A thin man with glasses spoke up. "But Admiral, we know nothing about these aliens or their enemies. Why risk human lives for strangers?" Miller had expected this question. "Counselor Lee, when our ancestors were still living in small tribes, they already understood something important. If you hear a cry for help, you answer it. Not just because it's right, but because tomorrow you might be the one crying out." Counselor Martinez leaned forward. "And what makes you think we can make a difference? If these aliens are losing a war, what can we do that they cannot?" At this, Miller almost smiled. "We are humans, Counselor. We evolved on Earth, what many in the galaxy would call a death world. Our gravity is crushing compared to most habitable planets. Our atmosphere would poison many species. We survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and our own nuclear wars." He paused, looking at each council member in turn. "We don't know much about these Lumini or the Vrek who hunt them, but I would bet good money that they've never met anything like us before." The council talked for many more hours. They argued about risks, about costs, about whether humans should get involved in alien conflicts. But in the end, they voted to send help. 3 days later, Admiral Miller stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, the largest battleship ever built by human hands. Around it, 15 other warships prepared for the jump to Lumini space. Captain Rosa Wilson approached him. "All ships report ready, Admiral. The fleet is at your command." Miller nodded. "Thank you, Captain." He turned to face the bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make history. We will be the first humans to answer a call from the stars, the first to meet an alien species face to face." He took a deep breath. "We go as helpers, but we are ready for war if that's what we find. The Lumini called for aid and Earth has answered. Whatever these Vrek are, they're about to learn that hunting weaker species stops when humans arrive." Lieutenant Tom Reed, the ship's navigation officer, looked up from his station. "Jump coordinates are set, sir. The fleet is in formation." Miller squared his shoulders. "Then let's not keep them waiting. Captain Wilson, give the order." Wilson's voice rang clear across the bridge. "All ships, prepare for jump. Destination, Lumini space." The stars outside the viewports began to stretch as the jump drives powered up. A blue light filled the bridge for a moment, then darkness, followed by a flash. When the light faded, they were in a new part of the galaxy. And what they saw made even Miller, who had seen the worst of Earth's wars, catch his breath. A dead world hung in space before them. Parts of it still glowed red from massive weapons, fire. Around it, broken ships drifted like leaves on a dark pond. "My God," whispered Reed. Miller's face hardened. "Begin scanning for survivors. Launch recon drones. I want to know where the enemy is now." As the fleet moved deeper into the system, they detected a weak signal coming from a small moon. It was another message from the Lumini. "Find us. Few remain." The wreck returned soon. Miller looked at the devastation around them, then at the determined faces of his crew. Earth had sent its best ships and its bravest people. They had come to answer a call for help, and that's exactly what they would do. "Set course for that moon," he ordered. "Weapons hot. If these wreck want to play the role of hunters, let's show them what it means to hunt things that come from a real death world." The human fleet moved forward, 16 ships against the darkness, carrying the strength and fury of Earth to a distant corner of the galaxy where help was desperately needed. And somewhere in that same darkness, the wreck were about to learn a hard lesson about picking fights with the wrong species. The small moon hung in the darkness, its surface pocked with craters and ruins. Lieutenant Tom Reed led the first team down to the surface in a heavily armed shuttle. Behind him, 5 more shuttles carried Marines and medical personnel. "Stay alert," he told his team as the shuttles touched down. "We don't know what we're walking into." They stepped out onto the gray surface of the moon. The gravity was light, making each step feel like they might float away. Reed checked his weapon and looked around. What had once been a base or small city was now mostly rubble. "Life signs detected," said Corporal Martinez, looking at her scanner, "coming from that structure ahead." Reed nodded. "Form up. Stay in defensive position." They moved forward slowly, weapons ready. The structure ahead was half buried in the moon's surface, its walls made of a strange blue-white material Reed had never seen before. At the entrance, Reed hesitated. "This is Lieutenant Tom Reed of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and are here to help." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the entrance shimmered and became transparent. Standing inside was a tall, slender figure. Reed's team gasped. The alien was unlike anything they had imagined. It stood nearly 7 feet tall with 4 long arms. Its skin glowed with a soft blue light, and its large eyes took up most of its face. It looked almost like it was made of glass or crystal. "You came," the alien said in perfect English, its voice musical and light. "We did not think anyone would hear us." Reed lowered his weapon slightly. "We heard. I'm here with medical support and protection. Are there others?" The alien bowed its head. "I am LR, ambassador of the Lumini. There are 23 of us left on this outpost. The others..." Its voice trailed off. "We'll help you," Reed said firmly. "Our ships are in orbit. We can evacuate your people." LR tilted its head, studying Reed with wide, curious eyes. "You are different from other species we have encountered. Your movements are quick, your body dense." Reed smiled slightly. "We come from Earth. High gravity, variable climate, lots of predators. Makes us tough. Earth must be terrible," Alar said, sounding shocked. Reed laughed. "We call it home." On board the Thunderbolt, Admiral Miller met with Alar and 2 other Lumini leaders. The aliens moved carefully in the ship's artificial gravity, which was set to Earth normal. Even this seemed to strain them. "We must adjust our ship's gravity for your comfort," Miller offered. Alar shook its head. "No, we must adapt. The wreck, they use this against us. Our physical weakness." Miller nodded. "Tell me about the wreck. What are we up against?" The Lumini projected an image onto the conference room wall. The wreck were massive reptilian creatures with thick scales and powerful limbs. "They attack worlds with resources they want," explained Alar. "They believe strength is the only law in the universe. When they found us, they saw only our technology, not our limited physical capabilities. We cannot fight as you do." Miller studied the image. "How many ships? What weapons?" "Over 50 warships in this sector alone," said one of the other Lumini named Talus. "They use plasma weapons, Kinetic bombardment. Nothing like what we detect on your vessels. What do you mean? Asked Captain Wilson. Your nuclear weapons, Elar said. We have not seen such primitive but effective tools in generations. And your soldiers? They move in gravity that would crush us. They breathe air that would kill many species. Miller leaned forward. The wreck have never encountered humans before, or any species. From a high-gravity world? No, said Elar. They hunt those they see as weak. They avoid conflicts with equals. A slow smile spread across Miller's face. Then we have an advantage they don't expect. 3 days later, the sensors detected a wreck battle group entering the system, 5 large ships heading directly for the moon. They're coming to finish what they started, Miller said, watching them approach. Lieutenant Reed, are the Lumini secure? Yes, sir, Reed replied from the bridge of a medical ship now safely hidden behind the system's gas giant. All survivors are aboard and receiving care. Miller nodded. Good. Now let's introduce ourselves to the wreck. The Thunderbolt and 3 other battleships moved to intercept the wreck fleet. Miller opened a channel. Attention wreck vessels. This is Admiral Jack Miller of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are attacking a species under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came quickly. A wreck commander appeared on screen, his scaled face showing sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. Tiny fleet. New species. You will die like the glass people. Miller's face hardened. I was hoping you'd say something like that. He cut the transmission and turned to Captain Wilson. Battle stations. Show them what humans can do. The wreck ships opened fire first, but they weren't prepared for the speed of the human vessels. The Thunderbolt rolled to avoid the plasma fire, while the other ships split formation and attacked from multiple angles. Their targeting systems are slower than ours, reported the weapons officer. They're not used to tracking targets that move like we do. Miller watched as his ships landed hit after hit on the surprised wreck vessels. Keep pressing. Don't give them time to adapt. On the edge of the battle, Lieutenant Reed watched from the medical ship. Beside him stood Elar, the Lumini's eyes wide with wonder. Your people fight like nothing we have seen, Elar said softly. The wreck do not understand what they face. Reed nodded. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight back. 2 wreck ships were already disabled, their engines dark. The others were trying to regroup, but the human vessels kept changing tactics, confusing them. Send the message again, Miller ordered. Let's see if they're ready to talk now. But the wreck weren't interested in talking. Instead, they sent an urgent transmission to their homeworld, calling for reinforcements. The humans had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. And as Reed watched the burning wreck ships, he knew that the real test was still to come. The Deathworlders had announced their arrival in the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. The news of the human victory spread quickly through wreck space. On the bridge of his massive command ship, Supreme Commander Draz slammed his scaled fist against the control panel. Impossible, he roared. How could 4 ships defeat our battle group? His second-in-command, Officer Krell, stood nervously nearby. The reports are clear, Supreme Commander. These humans fight like nothing we have seen before. They are different. Draz turned his yellow eyes toward Krell. Different how? They come from a high-gravity world. Their bodies are dense, strong. Their ships move faster than our targeting. Systems can track. And their weapons? Krell paused. They use nuclear weapons and high-energy projectiles rather than plasma tech. Draz laughed, a harsh sound that made his officers flinch. Primitive weapons. And you fear this? Supreme Commander, these primitives destroyed 2 of our best ships and damaged 3 others. Draz stood to his full height, nearly 9 feet tall. Then we will send 30 ships. These humans will learn what it means to challenge the wreck Imperium. On the Lumini colony world of Terrace, Marine Commander Anna Reyes led her troops through the ruined city. The wreck had landed ground forces 2 days before, hunting the remaining Lumini who hadn't been able to evacuate. Movement ahead, whispered Sergeant Jones, pointing to a collapsed building. Reyes signaled her squad to stop. Through her helmet visor, she spotted 3 large wreck soldiers dragging a Lumini civilian from the ruins. "Take them out, quietly," she ordered. 3 shots from silenced rifles and the wreck dropped without a sound. The Lumini looked up in shock as Reyes approached. "It's okay," she said, helping the frightened alien stand. "We're here to help." The Lumini stared at her in wonder. You killed them so easily." Reyes shrugged. "They're big but slow, and they don't expect anyone to fight back. There are more of my people trapped in the central district," the Lumini said, "but there are many wreck between here and there." Reyes smiled beneath her helmet. "Then we'd better get moving." The central district of the Lumini city was heavily guarded. 30 wreck soldiers patrolled the streets, and a heavy tank-like vehicle blocked the main road. Reyes studied the situation from a rooftop. "They've got us outnumbered." "Should we call for backup?" asked Jones. "No time," Reyes replied. "Those civilians won't last much longer." She thought for a moment. "The gravity here is only 0.6 Earth standard. We can use that." She turned to her squad. "We're going to hit them from above. They won't be expecting humans to jump like we can in this gravity." The Marines spread out along the rooftops. On Reyes's signal, they leapt into action. In Earth gravity, such jumps would be impossible, but here, they soared between buildings like they had wings. The Freck looked up in shock as humans rained down from above. Reyes landed on the tank, dropped a grenade into its main hatch, and jumped, clear before it exploded. The battle was short but fierce. The wreck fought hard, but they weren't prepared for humans who could outmaneuver them, outlast them, and outfight them at every turn. When it was over, Reyes led her Marines to the shelter where the Lumini civilians were hiding. "It's clear," she called out. "You can come out now." A group of about 40 Lumini emerged slowly, their glowing bodies dim with fear and exhaustion. "The wreck," one of them asked. "Are they gone?" "The ones in this area are," Reyes said, "but there are more coming. We need to get you to the evacuation point." A young Lumini approached Reyes. "I saw you jump between buildings. How can your bodies withstand such impacts?" Reyes smiled. "On Earth, we call that a short hop. Our bones and muscles evolved for much higher gravity than this." The Lumini looked at each other in amazement. "No wonder the wreck fear you now." Admiral Miller received the reports from all fronts with growing concern. Commander Reyes was successful in evacuating the Lumini from Taris, but new wreck fleets were gathering. "They're bringing everything they have," Captain Wilson said, looking at the tactical display. "Over 30 warships heading for the Lumini homeworld." Miller nodded gravely. "They're angry. We've challenged their view of the universe." On the screen, the approaching wreck armada looked overwhelming. The human fleet, now spread thin protecting multiple Lumini worlds, would be outnumbered. "We need a new strategy," Miller said. "We can't win by fighting them ship to ship anymore." Lieutenant Reed spoke up from his station. "Sir, the Lumini have advanced technology, but they've never developed weapons like ours because of their peaceful nature. What if we combined our technologies?" Miller looked thoughtful. "Go on. Their ships have better sensors and shields than ours, but weaker weapons. If we could integrate our weapon systems with their defensive tech, it could work," Miller said. "Get Engineer Torres on it immediately." On the Lumini homeworld, Engineer Ben Torres worked frantically with Lumini scientists. They made an odd team, the stocky human with rough hands and the tall, delicate aliens with their 4 arms and glowing skin. "Your power systems are incredible," Torres said, examining the Lumini technology. "Far more efficient than anything we have, but you never developed them for weapons." "Our bodies cannot handle the stress of combat," explained the Lumini scientist Malus. "We evolved on a world with gentle gravity and few predators." Torres nodded. "And we evolved on a death world, where everything wanted to eat us." He held up a human missile guidance system. "Let's see what happens when we combine your power cells with our warheads." As they worked, news arrived that the Vrek Supreme Commander himself was leading the attack fleet. The final battle for the Lumini Homeworld was about to begin, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. The space above the Lumini homeworld glittered with stars and ships. The human fleet, now just 12 vessels, faced the massive wreck armada of 30 warships. At the center of the wreck formation was the enormous command ship of Supreme Commander, Draz, 3 times the size of the Thunderbolt. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Miller studied the tactical display with a grim face. Captain Wilson stood beside him, her expression equally serious. "They have us outnumbered," she said quietly. Miller nodded. "But not outmatched. Not yet." He opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Miller. The people of Earth sent us to help the Lumini, and that's exactly what we're going to do, no matter the odds." Across the fleet, human crews prepared for battle. They had faced danger before, but never like this. Yet not one considered retreat. "Sir," Lieutenant Reed called out, "Engineer Torres reports the integrated weapon systems are ready on all ships." Miller's eyes narrowed. "Then it's time to show the wreck what happens when you push humans into a corner." On the surface of the Lumini homeworld, Commander Anna Reyes and her Marines were the last line of defense. They had set up positions around the main Lumini city, ready to fight if the wreck broke through the fleet above. "How's it looking up there?" asked Sergeant Jones, cleaning his rifle. Reyes checked her comm unit. "Not good. We're outnumbered more than 2 to 1. A young Marine named Cooper looked nervous. "Can we win this?" Reyes met his eyes. "We're humans, Cooper. We climbed out of the mud on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages with sticks and stones. We fought wars that should have ended us. And we're still here." She looked up at the sky. "The Vrek think numbers win battles. We're about to teach them differently." The first shots came from the wreck fleet, a wave of plasma fire that lit up space like a new sun. The human ships scattered, moving faster than the wreck targeting systems could follow. "Return fire," Miller ordered. "Use the new combined systems." The Thunderbolt fired its main cannons, now powered by Lumini energy cells. The effect was immediate and devastating. The enhanced weapons cut through wreck shields like they weren't there, destroying 2 ships with the first volley. "It's working!" Reed shouted, but the wreck numbers were still overwhelming. As the battle continued, the human ships took heavy damage. 3 were destroyed in the first hour of fighting. The Thunderbolt itself was hit multiple times, fires breaking. "Out on several decks." "Hull breach on deck 7, reported an officer. "Engines at 60%. Miller held onto his chair as the ship shook from another hit. "Keep fighting. We need to protect the Lumini homeworld at all costs." On the command ship, Supreme Commander Draz watched with growing rage as his fleet struggled against the smaller, human force. Despite their superior numbers, the Vrek were losing ships at an alarming rate. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "They are outnumbered." Officer Krell studied the battle data. "They fight differently, Supreme Commander. They take risks no sane species would consider. And their combined technology with the Lumini has made them stronger." Draz slammed his fist down. "No more games. Target their flagship. All ships concentrate fire." The Thunderbolt shuddered under the concentrated attack. Systems failed across the ship as multiple wreck vessels pounded it with plasma fire. "Shields failing," Captain Wilson reported. "Main power at critical levels." Miller looked at the tactical display. The wreck command ship was moving closer, going in for the kill. In that moment, a plan formed in his mind. "All power to engines," he ordered. "Set course directly for the wreck flagship." Wilson stared at him in shock. "Sir, that's the only way," Miller finished for her. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not physical impacts. And in this gravity, with our mass..." Wilson nodded slowly, understanding. "All hands, brace for impact." The damaged Thunderbolt surged forward, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the wreck command ship. Draz saw it coming too late. "Evade!" he roared. "Stop them!" But the massive wreck ship couldn't move quickly enough. The Thunderbolt slammed into its side with tremendous force. The impact tore through the wreck shields and ripped open the hull of both vessels. Miller was thrown from his chair as the bridge shook violently. Alarms blared and smoke filled the air. Damage report, he called out, pulling himself up. We're in bad shape, sir, Reed answered, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. But so are they. Their main power is offline. Their weapons are down. Miller nodded. Send the signal to Commander Reyes. Now's her chance. On the surface, Reyes received the message and turned to her Marines. The fleet has damaged the wreck command ship. It's entered orbit and is unable to leave. We're going up there to finish this. Her team boarded a transport ship and launched toward the crippled wreck vessel. As they approached, they could see the massive damage from the Thunderbolt's impact. Prepare for boarding, Reyes ordered. Remember, we're fighting in lower gravity than they're used to. Use that advantage. The Marines cut their way into the wreck ship and found chaos inside. Fires burned throughout the vessel and injured wreck soldiers struggled in the corridors. The fighting was brutal and close. The wreck were larger and stronger, but the humans were faster and more adaptable. Step by step, they fought their way toward the command center. When they finally broke through to the bridge, Supreme Commander Draz stood waiting, surrounded by his elite guards. So, he growled, the Deathworlders come face to face at last. Rhea stepped forward, her rifle aimed at his chest. It's over, Commander. Your fleet is in retreat. Surrender now. Draz laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the damaged bridge. Vrek, do not surrender. Then Vrek die, Reyes said simply. The fight was short but fierce. When it ended, Draz lay defeated at Reyes's feet, his yellow eyes wide with shock. How? He gasped. How can such small creatures be so strong? Reyes looked down at him. Because we had to be. On Earth, only the strong survive. As she placed restraints on the wreck commander, word spread through the fleet that the Supreme Commander had been captured. Without his leadership, the remaining wreck ships began to retreat. The battle was over. The humans had won against impossible odds, but the cost had been high, and the war was far from finished. The capture of Supreme Commander Draz sent shockwaves through the wreck Imperium. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they had been defeated. Not just beaten in battle, but humiliated by a species they had never even heard of. Before Admiral Miller sat in the makeshift medical bay on what remained of the Thunderbolt, his left arm was in a sling, and bandages covered burns on his face. But he was alive, and so were many of his crew, though not all. The price of victory had been high. Captain Wilson entered, moving carefully with her own injuries. Final casualty report, sir. We lost 4 ships completely. The others are damaged but repairable. Miller nodded slowly. And our people? 217 dead, 300 injured. She paused. But we saved the Lumini. All of them. Miller closed his eyes for a moment. Each death weighed on him, but he knew they had done what they came to do. What about the wreck commander? Commander Reyes has him secure in the brig. He's not taking his capture well. Miller stood up slowly. I think it's time I met him face to face. The brig was heavily guarded. Inside the cell, Supreme Commander Draz sat on a bench that was too small for his massive frame. His scales had lost their shine and his yellow eyes burned with hatred as Miller entered. So, Draz growled, the leader of the Deathworlders comes to gloat. Miller shook his head. I don't gloat over war, Commander. Too many good people died on both sides. Then why are you here? To understand, Miller said simply. Why attack the Lumini? Why kill a peaceful species that posed no threat to you? Drazi laughed harshly. They were weak. The galaxy belongs to the strong. And now? Do you still believe that? The Vrek commander was silent for a long moment. You should have killed me. That's not our way, Miller replied. Not unless we have to. Draz leaned forward, his chains rattling. Your species. How did you become so strong in such small bodies? Miller thought about Earth, about its harsh history and the long struggle of human evolution. We had no choice. Our world made us this way. We fought every day just to survive. A true death world, Draz said, almost with respect. The Wreck have legends of such places, but we thought them myths. The myths are real, Commander, and there are more of us coming. On the Lumini homeworld, a great gathering took place. The remaining Lumini leaders stood on a platform with the human officers. Around them, thousands of Lumini citizens glowed with renewed hope. Ilar, now the head of the Lumini Council, stepped forward to address the crowd. Today marks a new beginning for our people, Ilar's musical voice carried across the square. We faced extinction, but we found friends among the stars. Friends who fought for us when we could not fight for ourselves. The crowd pulsed with light, their way of showing approval. The humans came from a world unlike our own, a world that shaped them into warriors. But they used their strength to protect, not to conquer. Ilar turned to Admiral Miller, who stood with his officers. In gratitude, we offer the humans our knowledge, our technology, and our friendship. Together, we will build a safer galaxy for all peaceful species. The humans and Lumini signed a formal alliance that day. The Lumini would share their advanced technology, their faster ships, their clean energy sources, their medical science. In return, the humans would provide protection and help the Lumini rebuild their damaged worlds. News of the alliance spread quickly through the galaxy. On many worlds, species that had lived in fear of the wreck began to rise up against their oppressors. The Vrek Imperium, once thought invincible, was crumbling from within. 3 months later, Admiral Miller stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Thunderbolt, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. Commander Reyes and Lieutenant Reed stood beside him. "Strange to be going home," Reed said. "After everything we've seen." Miller nodded. "Earth is going to seem different now. We know we're not alone out here. And the galaxy knows about us too," added Reyes. "The Deathworlders who fought the Vrek and won." Miller smiled slightly. "I've received messages from 6 other species asking for alliances. They all want Earth's protection now." "Are we ready for that?" asked Reed. "To be the galaxy's defenders?" "Ready or not, it's who we are now," Miller replied. "We answered a call for help, and it changed everything." As they approached Earth, Miller thought about the changes that would come. Lumini ships were already in orbit, beginning the exchange of knowledge and technology. Human colonies would soon spread to the stars, protected by the reputation they had earned. And throughout the galaxy, other aggressive empires were reconsidering their plans. Reports had spread of the Deathworlders from Earth, a species that had evolved on a planet so harsh that it had forged them into something uniquely powerful. A species that could defeat a force 3 times its size. A species that, when it heard a cry for help from across the stars, answered with unwavering resolve. The Vrek had learned a painful lesson about humans, and they wouldn't be the last. The Thunderbolt entered Earth orbit, Miller felt a strange mix of pride and humility. Humans had always looked to the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now they knew the answer. And the stars had looked back and found something remarkable. A species born on a death world, carrying with them both the strength to fight and the compassion to protect. The galaxy would never be the same again, and neither would humanity. The quiet of Deep Space Monitoring Station Outpost 7 was broken by an urgent beeping. Officer Jack Moore looked up from his coffee, frowning at the unexpected alert. For 3 years, his job had been boring, mostly watching empty space and filing routine reports. Today was different. "Computer, identify signal source," Jack said, placing his mug down. "Unknown transmission. Possible distress call. Origin, Tau sector. Approximately 42 light-years from Earth," the computer replied in its flat voice. Jack's heart beat faster. The Tau sector was home to an advanced alien alliance that had always kept their distance from humans. They were peaceful, but wary, having observed humanity's rapid rise to become a spacefaring civilization. "Play the message," Jack ordered. The speakers crackled with strange sounds before translating into broken English. "Help. Tau Orbital Federation under attack. Enemy consumes all life. Please. Earth forces. Only hope. Deathworlders. May survive what we cannot." Jack's hands trembled as he sent an emergency alert to Earth Defense Headquarters. Humanity had been called many things since venturing to the stars, but Deathworlders was the name that stuck. It wasn't meant as a compliment. Humans had evolved on a planet with crushing gravity, toxic oxygen levels and deadly radiation that would kill most sentient species in the galaxy. What humans considered normal living conditions were death sentences for most aliens. Commander Alex Reed was enjoying his retirement in the mountains of New Montana when his communication device buzzed with the highest priority alert code. He hadn't seen that code in 15 years, not since the colony wars ended. "Reed here," he answered, his voice still sharp despite his 60 years. "Commander Reed, this is Admiral Wilson. The Council has called an emergency meeting. We need you. Back." Reed looked out at the peaceful forest surrounding his cabin. "I've been retired for 8 years, Tom. It's first contact level, Alex. The Tau Federation has sent a distress call. They're being attacked by something they can't handle, and they've asked for us specifically." Reed felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. The Tau asked for human help? They've barely spoken to us in 20 years. They called us Deathworlders, said we might be the only ones who can survive whatever's attacking them. Reed closed his eyes. He knew what this meant. "I'll be there in 3 hours." The Earth Defense Council chamber was filled with tension as officials from all human colonies gathered. Reed sat quietly, watching the 25 council members argue about how to respond to the alien plea for help. "We should ignore it," said Councillor Davis. "The Tau have never been our allies. This could be a trap." "Or an opportunity," countered Councillor Lin. "If we help them, we could finally establish better relations with the most advanced federation in our sector." Admiral Wilson stood, his tall figure commanding attention. The message included data about the attacking force. They call themselves the Voidborn. They're consuming everything: planets, moons, asteroids. They're stripping whole worlds of all biological material. Reed studied the holographic images. The Voidborn ships were massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to absorb smaller ships into their structures. "How many ships do the Tau have left?" Reed asked. "Less than half their fleet remains," Wilson replied. "They estimate complete defeat within 6 months without intervention." The debate continued for hours until Council President Garcia called for a vote. By a narrow margin of 14-11, they decided to respond to the distress call. Garcia turned to Reed. "Commander, we're reactivating the full battle fleet, all 500 ships. You will lead the expedition." Reed felt the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. Earth hadn't deployed its full fleet since the colony wars. Most ships had been mothballed, kept in orbital shipyards as a precaution while humanity focused on peaceful expansion. "I'll need Captain Maya Diaz to lead the engineering reactivation," Reed said, "and I want veteran officers recalled for command positions." Wilson nodded. "Already started the process. The Tau are sending an ambassador to provide intelligence on the enemy." 2 days later, Reed stood in the observation deck of Earth Orbital Command, watching as massive shipyards came to life. Giant mechanical arms moved around the dormant warships, preparing them for service again. "It's an impressive sight," said a soft voice behind him. Reed turned to see a slender, pale blue figure standing in the doorway. The Tau ambassador was taller than most humans, with 4 arms and large dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Ambassador Nix," Reed said with a respectful nod. "I didn't expect you so soon." "Time is not our friend, Commander." Nix moved to the window, his movements graceful despite Earth's crushing gravity. "Your species fascinates us. You evolved on a planet that would kill most sentient beings in days, yet you thrive. Your bodies can withstand radiation levels that would melt our skin. Your lungs process oxygen that would be poison to us. We're just adapted to our world," Reed said simply. "No," Nix replied. "You are warriors born from a world that tried to kill you every day of your evolution. We call you Deathworlders not as an insult but in recognition of your strength." He turned his large eyes to Reed. "The Voidborn are consuming everything in their path. They cannot be reasoned with. We tried peace. We tried surrender. They simply consume." Reed watched the shipyards where thousands of workers were preparing for war. "How many of your people have they killed?" "Billions," Nick said quietly. "Entire worlds stripped of all life." Reed's jaw tightened. Then they'll learn what happens when they face a species born on a death world. As the massive ships began powering up their engines for the first time in years, Reed knew that humanity was about to remind the galaxy why even peaceful alien civilizations kept their distance from Earth. The Deathworlders were awakening, and their fury would soon be unleashed across the stars. Captain Maya Diaz walked through the massive orbital shipyard, her footsteps echoing on the metal walkway. Below her, thousands of engineers and workers moved like ants around the dormant warships of Earth's fleet. For years, these mighty vessels had floated silently in space, their weapon systems powered down, their engines cold. Now they were waking up. "Status report," Maya called to her chief engineer, a stocky man named Greg who hadn't slept in 3 days. "The first 100 ships will be ready in 48 hours, Greg replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The rest will follow in waves. We're installing the new shield technology on all vessels, but it's slow work." Maya nodded, looking at the nearest ship, the dreadnought Terra Nova. Its massive hull stretched nearly a kilometer in length, bristling with weapon ports and launch bays. During peacetime, the ship had seemed like an unnecessary reminder of humanity's violent past. Now it represented hope for an alien civilization they barely knew. "Double the work crews on the command ships," Maya ordered. "Commander Reed wants the flagship ready for inspection tomorrow." As Greg hurried away, Maya's communication device beeped. Admiral Wilson's face appeared on the small screen. "Captain Diaz, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies. Volunteers are flooding in. Nearly every retired military officer has requested reactivation." Maya wasn't surprised. Humans might fight among themselves, but they stood united against external threats. "How many ships will we be able to crew?" "All of them," Wilson replied with a grim smile. "The Tau ambassador is requesting a tour of our facilities. I want you to show him what we're capable of." Ambassador Nix walked carefully through the engineering bay, his forearms held close to his slender body. The gravity was painful for him, but he had refused any assistance. Captain Diaz walked beside him, slowing her pace to accommodate his labored movements. "Your species works quickly," Nix observed, watching as a massive engine core was lifted into place by robotic arms. "Our engineers would take months to accomplish what you've done in days. We evolved on a high-gravity world with constant natural disasters and predators," Maya explained. "We had to learn to adapt quickly or die." Nick stopped at a viewport, watching as workers in exosuits crawled across the hull of a battleship, installing new armor plating. "You know, before we encountered humans, we thought our civilization was advanced. We had achieved peace throughout our federation. We had eliminated hunger, disease, poverty." "That sounds advanced to me," Maya said. "Perhaps, but we also eliminated something vital, the drive to survive against all odds." Nix turned his large eyes toward her. "The first time we made contact with humans, we were terrified. Your people could lift 10 times what our strongest could manage. You could survive radiation that would kill us instantly. Your bodies repair damage that would be fatal to us." Maya shrugged. "Earth tried to kill us every day. We adapted." "The Voidborn have never encountered a species like yours," Nick said, quietly. "They consume worlds where life evolved in gentle conditions, soft worlds, easy prey." A sudden alarm blared through the facility. Maya checked her device and frowned. "The advanced scout team has returned with footage. Command Center is calling an emergency briefing." Commander Reed stood before the holographic display as the room filled with officers. Ambassador Nix took a seat at the back, his tall frame hunched under Earth's gravity. "The scout ships have returned from the edge of Tau space," Reed announced. "What they found is troubling." The hologram showed a devastated planet, its surface stripped down to bare rock. Where cities had once stood, only foundations remained. The oceans were empty basins. "This was Tau Colony Elysium," Reed said grimly. "Population 2 billion. The Voidborn stripped it bare in under a week." The room was silent as the footage continued, showing massive, organic-looking ships surrounding a small moon. Tentacle-like appendages extended from the vessels, piercing the surface and seemingly drawing material up into the ships. "They don't just kill," Nick said from the back of the room, his voice barely audible. They consume everything. Biological, matter, water, even atmospheric gases. They leave nothing behind. Admiral Wilson stepped forward. Our intelligence suggests they've consumed 8 Tau worlds so far. Their fleet is moving toward the Tau home system. How many ships do they have? Asked one of the officers. Over 1,000, Wilson replied. The room erupted in muttered conversations. Reed raised his hand for silence. Numbers aren't everything. We have advantages they don't know about. Human reflexes are faster than any species we've encountered. Our ships are designed to withstand conditions most aliens can't imagine. And we're angry, added Maya from her seat. These Voidborn are killing innocent civilians. Humans don't take kindly to that. Reed nodded. The Earth fleet hasn't been fully deployed since the colony wars. The galaxy has forgotten what humans are capable of when threatened. He turned to the hologram, zooming in on one of the massive Voidborn ships. It's time to remind them. As dawn broke over Earth the next day, the first wave of warships rose from their orbital docks. Their hulls gleamed in the sunlight, newly upgraded weapon systems humming with power. On the bridge of the flagship Terra Nova, Commander Reed watched, as his fleet formed up around him. All systems online, reported his first officer, a veteran named James. The fleet is ready, sir. Reed looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of Earth's assembled warships. 500 vessels. From small, nimble corvettes to massive dreadnoughts, the largest military force humans had assembled in a generation. Open fleet-wide communication, Reed ordered. When the channel was open, Reed spoke clearly and calmly, his voice reaching every ship in the armada, men and women of Earth's fleet. Today we embark on a mission unlike any in our history. For the first time, we fight not for human interests, but to save an alien civilization from extinction. The Tau called us Deathworlders, evolved on a planet that would kill most sentient species. They're right. Earth made us strong, resilient, and dangerous when provoked. He paused, looking at the stars visible through the viewport. The Voidborn have never faced humans before. They believe all life in this galaxy is easy prey. Today, they learn they're wrong. Today, they learn what it means to face the children of Earth. As the massive fleet broke orbit and accelerated toward deep space, Ambassador Nix watched from the observation deck of Earth Command. For the first time since the Voidborn attacks began, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The Deathworlders were coming and the void would tremble. The vast emptiness of space stretched before Earth's armada as they moved at high speed toward Tau territory. 500 warships, arranged in perfect formation, cut through the darkness like a metal fist aimed at an unseen enemy. On the bridge of the flagship Terra Nova, Commander Reed watched the stars streak by on the main view screen. 6 days to the edge of Tau space, reported Navigation Officer Lisa, her fingers dancing across the control panel. All ships maintaining formation. Reed nodded, studying the star charts. The journey would take them through several unmapped regions. Perfect places for ambushes, though intelligence suggested the Voidborn were still concentrated in Tau territory. Any word from our scout drones? Reed asked. Communications Officer Dan frowned at his console. First wave of drones went silent 3 hours ago. Second wave is approaching the Tau colony of Harmony now. Reed's expression darkened. Scout drones going silent wasn't a good sign. Put it on the main screen when they arrive. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every officer knew what was at stake. Not just the survival of the Tau, but potentially all life in this sector of the galaxy. If the Voidborn couldn't be stopped, Earth could be next. In the ship's mess hall, off-duty crew members gathered around tables talking in low voices. Despite the unity of purpose that had brought the fleet together, old divisions remained. Earthborn veterans sat separately from those born in the colonies, their distrust a remnant of the colony wars. Captain Maya Diaz noticed the separation as she entered. She grabbed a tray of food and deliberately sat at a table with mixed company, 2 Earth officers and a colonial engineer. Progress reports from engineering? She asked the colonial, a woman named Rita from New Mars. The new shield enhancements are holding stable, Rita replied, not making eye contact with the Earth officers. But we're pushing the reactors to 120% capacity. They weren't designed for continuous output at that level. One of the Earth officers, a burly man named Frank, snorted. Colonial tech, always cutting corners. Maya saw Rita's jaw tighten. Before the situation could escalate, alarms blared throughout the ship. All four of them jumped to their feet and rushed to their stations. On the bridge, Reed stared in horror at the images being transmitted by the scout drones. The Tau colony of Harmony, once home to millions, was now a barren rock. The oceans were gone, leaving empty basins. Where forests had stood, only bare soil remained. The cities were mere outlines, like archaeological sites, thousands of years old rather than vibrant metropolises from just days ago. Play the time-lapse, Reed ordered. The screen showed a green and blue world surrounded by strange, organic-looking vessels. Tentacle-like structures extended from the ships, piercing the planet's surface. Over just 3 days, the color drained from the world as everything, water, plant life, animal life, atmosphere, was sucked up into the massive ships. They're not just killing, whispered Dan from his station. They're eating the planet. Ambassador. Nix entered the bridge, his tall frame moving carefully in the ship's artificial gravity. When he saw the screen, he froze. Harmony, he said, his voice breaking. I was born there. Reed motioned for a chair to be brought for the ambassador. I'm sorry you had to see this. No, Nix replied, his large eyes fixed on the devastated. Protocol, I need to see it, we all do. He turned to Reed. Your species understands something mine never truly grasped. Sometimes survival requires violence. Before Reed could respond, another alarm sounded. Commander, called the sensor officer. We're detecting a damaged vessel ahead. Tau design. Full stop, Reed ordered. Prepare rescue teams. Ambassador, can you help us communicate with any survivors? The damaged Tau ship drifted in space, its sleek hull torn open in multiple places. Earth's rescue shuttles approached cautiously, scanning for signs of life. Inside the ruined vessel, Maya led a team of engineers and medical personnel. They wore full environmental suits, their boots making hollow sounds on the metal deck. The air was thin, barely breathable even for humans. For Tau, it would be fatal. Life signs ahead, reported a medic, checking her scanner. Faint, but present. They found 3 survivors in a sealed compartment. The Tau were slender, blue-skinned beings, their 4 arms wrapped around themselves in what Maya recognized as a fear response. When they saw the humans, their large eyes widened even further. We come from Earth, Maya said, activating her translator. Ambassador Nick sent us to find you. One of the Tau, clearly injured, spoke in a weak voice. The translator converted it to English. The Voidborn, they came without warning. Our defenses did nothing. They consumed everything. We're taking you to our ship, Maya said gently. Can you travel? As the rescue team helped the survivors to the shuttle, the injured Tau gripped Maya's arm with surprising strength. You must know, they're not just animals. They think. They plan. And they've detected your fleet. Maya felt a chill run through her body. How do you know? Because they let us live, the Tau whispered. They wanted us to warn you. They've never been challenged before. They're curious about you. Back on the Terra Nova, Reed called an emergency meeting with his senior officers and the Tau survivors. The main view screen showed a map of their route to Tau space, with a blinking red dot at the halfway point. According to our scouts and the Tau survivors, the main Voidborn fleet is gathering here, Reed explained, pointing to the red dot, directly in our path. How many ships? Asked Admiral Wilson via secure channel from Earth. Over 2,000, Reed replied grimly, 4 times our number. The room fell silent. Even with Earth's advanced technology, those odds were grim. Chief, Science Officer Ben Parker cleared his throat. Commander, I've been analyzing the data from the consumed planets and the tissue samples from the damaged Tau ship. The Voidborn aren't just consuming resources. They're specifically targeting biological material rich in certain proteins and minerals. What does that tell us? Reed asked. It might give us a weakness to exploit, Ben replied. Their biology is complex, but it appears they can't synthesize certain compounds. They have to consume them. Reed turned to the Tau survivors. Is there anything else you can tell us about them? Anything that might help? The injured Tau leader looked up, his large eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Only that they fear nothing. They have never met a species that could truly threaten them. He paused. Until now, perhaps. As the meeting continued, the massive Earth fleet resumed its journey, cutting through the darkness toward the waiting Voidborn armada. Ahead lay the first true test of humanity's reputation as Deathworlders, children of a world that had forged them into survivors against all odds. The edge of Tau space loomed ahead, a boundary marked only on star charts but heavy with meaning. Commander Reed stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, watching as his tactical officer, Layla Kwan, prepared the fleet for the coming battle. Aldi, ships report ready, Commander, Layla said, her voice steady despite the tension. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Reed nodded, studying the holographic display showing the positions of Earth's armada. 500 warships arranged in a three-dimensional formation, designed to maximize firepower while protecting the more vulnerable support vessels. Any sign of the Voidborn? Reed asked. Nothing yet, replied Sensor Officer Mike. But our long-range scans show unusual energy readings ahead. They could be masking their presence. Reed turned to communications. Send a message to all ships, battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the fleet, alarm klaxons sounded as crews rushed to their positions. Weapon systems hummed to life, targeting computers calculating firing solutions for enemies not yet visible. In the engine rooms, engineers pushed reactor outputs to their limits, ready to provide emergency power to weapons or shields. Commander, Mike called suddenly. Multiple contacts appearing. They're coming out of some kind of fold in space. The main view screen showed a terrifying sight. The emptiness of space seemed to tear open, revealing massive organic-looking vessels. They emerged one after another, their hulls a strange mix of technology and living tissue. Long tendrils extended from their sides, waving slowly like underwater plants. 2,700 contacts, Mike reported, his voice barely a whisper. The largest is 5 times the size of Terra Nova. Ambassador Nix, who had insisted on remaining on the bridge, stepped forward. The flagship, he said, pointing to the largest vessel. That is where they coordinate. Reed studied the enemy formation. Despite their numbers, they seemed to be arranging themselves in a simple wall pattern. Overconfidence, perhaps? They're not impressed by us, Reed mused. Good. Sir? Layla looked confused. They outnumber us more than 5 to 1, Reed explained. They expect us to retreat or be easily defeated. They don't know what humans are capable of. He pointed to a section of the enemy formation. There. Their left flank is extended too far. Tactical, prepare assault pattern Delta. Focus fire on these coordinates. Aboard the lead Voidborn vessel, a being observed the approaching human fleet, with multiple sensory organs. The Voidborn had no true name for themselves, having never needed to distinguish their species from others. To them, there were only consumers and the consumed. The approaching vessels were strange, hard, metallic, lacking the beautiful blend of biology and technology that marked Voidborn ships. The beings inside them were even stranger, according to the data gathered from consumed Tau worlds. Small solid creatures with rigid internal structures and inefficient respiratory systems. They came from a high-gravity, radiation-filled planet that would kill most sentient life in the galaxy. Curious, but ultimately irrelevant. Everything was food in the end. The Voidborn commander sent a simple thought signal to its fleet. Consume. They're moving, Layla called out. All vessels accelerating toward us. Reed watched as the massive wall of enemy ships surged forward. Hold position, he ordered. Wait for them to commit. The distance between the fleets shrank rapidly, On the view screen, the void-born ships grew larger, their alien design becoming more apparent. They had no visible weapons, but the tendrils extending from their hulls began to glow with energy. Energy buildup detected, Mike warned. "They're preparing to fire." Reed waited one more moment, then gave the order. "Execute Delta. All ships engage." The Earth fleet suddenly shifted, the formation breaking apart and reforming in a complex three-dimensional pattern that no non-human mind could have predicted. A third of the fleet accelerated forward, diving directly into the enemy's extended flank. Another third curved upward, attacking from above. The remaining ships, including Terra Nova, held position, providing covering fire. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. Human ships released salvos of missiles and energy, beams targeting the lead void-born vessels. The void-born responded with strange energy pulses that seemed to distort space itself. 3 human ships vanished instantly, caught in these distortion fields, but the rest pressed on, their attacks striking the void-born with devastating force. The organic components of the alien ships proved vulnerable to Earth's weapons, chunks of hull material breaking away under the onslaught. "Their shields are different from ours," Science Officer Ben reported, analyzing the sensor data. "They absorb energy rather than deflecting it, but they have limits." Reed watched as Layla coordinated the attack. Her fingers danced across the tactical display, directing squadrons of fighters launched from Earth's carriers. The small, nimble craft slipped through gaps in the void-born formation, delivering precise strikes against vulnerable points. "Sir, the Tau reinforcements are arriving," communications announced. On the edge of the battle, a small fleet of sleek blue-silver ships appeared. The remnants of the once mighty Tau armada, they moved to join the Earth forces. "Send them tactical data," Reed ordered. "Integrate them into our defensive screen." The battle raged for hours, both sides taking heavy losses. Human ships, despite their advanced technology, were outmatched by the sheer size and power of the void-born vessels. But what the humans lacked in raw strength, they made up for in adaptability and tactical thinking. Layla's flanking maneuver slowly isolated a section of the void-born fleet. Cut off from the main force, 200 enemy ships found themselves surrounded by human and Tau vessels firing from all directions. "They're breaking formation," Mike called out, excitement in his voice. "The isolated group is trying to retreat." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "Don't let them. Carriers, launch all remaining fighters. Cut them off." On the view screen, hundreds of small fighter craft swarmed from Earth's carriers, forming a wall of movement and weapons fire that blocked the void-born retreat. Caught between this barrier and the main attack force, the enemy ships began to fall one by one. But the victory was costly. A third of Earth's fleet was already destroyed or crippled, their crews either dead or fighting for survival in the vacuum of space. Every officer on the bridge knew they couldn't sustain these losses for long. "Commander," Ben called from his science station. "I'm detecting unusual readings from one of the damaged void-born ships. It's different from the others." Reed turned to him. "Different how?" "Its internal structure is more complex," Ben explained, "and it's emitting communication signals to multiple vessels. I think it might be a command ship." Reed studied the tactical display, finding the vessel Ben had identified. It was smaller than many others, partially hidden behind the massive bulk of the void-born flagship. "Layla, new target," Reed ordered. "Concentrate all available firepower on that vessel." The battle shifted as Earth's forces adjusted their attack. The identified void-born command ship suddenly found itself under heavy fire from multiple directions. Its organic hull, already damaged, began to break apart under the assault. "They're responding," Mike reported. "The flagship is moving to protect the command vessel." Reed watched as the massive void-born flagship shifted position, placing itself between Earth's fleet and the vulnerable command ship. It was the first truly defensive move they had seen from the enemy. "They're protecting it," Reed said quietly. "That confirms its importance. All ships focus fire on the flagship. Layla, prepare boarding teams." Despite the danger, Reed knew they needed information. If they could capture the command ship, they might find the key to defeating the entire void-born fleet. As Earth's forces pressed their advantage, a strange sense of hope began to grow among the crews. For the first time since the Voidborn appeared in this sector of space, they were on the defensive. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the battle had only just begun. The captured Voidborn command ship drifted silently, surrounded by Earth vessels. Its organic hull was torn and burned, sections exposed to the vacuum of space. Inside, teams of human scientists and soldiers moved carefully through the alien corridors, weapons ready. In the makeshift lab aboard the Terra Nova, Science Officer Ben studied samples taken from the captured vessel. The material was unlike anything humans had encountered. Half technology, half living tissue that continued to react even when separated from the main structure. Fascinating, Ben muttered, adjusting his microscope. Their entire ship is a single organism, with specialized cells performing different functions, like a massive spaceborne creature. Commander Reed entered the lab, his uniform showing signs of the recent battle. Tell me you found something useful. Ben looked up, eyes bright with discovery. Their biology is their weakness, Commander. The Voidborn consume specific compounds because their cellular structure requires them. Without these compounds, their ships, their bodies, begin to break down. Reed leaned over the workstation. Can we use this? I've been working on a biological countermeasure, Ben explained. A synthetic compound that mimics what they need but causes their cellular structures to destabilize. If we can deliver it to enough of their ships. How do we deliver it? Reed asked. Ben pointed to a diagram on his screen. Their ships constantly draw in material through those tendrils. If we can get close enough, we can release the compound where they'll absorb it. Reed straightened. Decision made. Do it. I'll coordinate with tactical. The combined Earth-Tau fleet regrouped at the edge of the battle zone. Nearly 100 human ships had been destroyed with many more damaged. The Tau fleet, already reduced by earlier Voidborn attacks, had lost half its remaining vessels. But they had achieved something unprecedented. The Voidborn advance had been halted. On the bridge of the Terra Nova, Reed held a war council with his senior officers and the Tau commanders who had joined them. The main Voidborn fleet is gathering, at these coordinates, Reed explained, pointing to a star system on the tactical display. Intelligence from the captured ship confirms it's their staging area for the final push into Tau space. Layla studied the map. They outnumber us 4-1 even after our victory. Numbers aren't everything, Reed replied. We've proven they can be hurt. Now we need to deliver the killing blow. He turned to Ben. How's production of the countermeasure? We've modified our missile payloads to carry it, Ben reported. But we'll need to get close, within their defensive perimeter, for maximum effectiveness. Admiral Wilson, joining via secure channel from Earth, spoke up. The Council has authorized deployment of the Nova weapons. A murmur ran through the officers. The Nova weapons, miniature artificial stars that collapsed into quantum singularities, had been banned by treaty after the colony wars. Their destructive power was unmatched, but using them was a desperate measure. Are we that desperate? Maya asked quietly. Wilson's expression was grim. We've received reports of Voidborn scout ships near our outer colonies. This isn't just about saving the Tau anymore. It's about saving all life in this sector, including humanity. Reed nodded slowly. Very well. We'll integrate the Nova weapons into our attack plan. He turned to the Tau commander, a slender, blue-skinned officer named Lear. Your ships are faster than ours. Can they deliver the biological agent while we engage the main fleet? Lear inclined his head. We will do this. My people are ready to fight alongside the Deathworlders. 3 days later, the combined fleet approached the Voidborn staging area. Ahead, thousands of the massive organic vessels clustered around a gutted planet, once a thriving Tau colony, now a barren rock. All ships, battle formations, Reed ordered. Carriers, launch fighter screens, Nova delivery vessels, maintain position behind the main assault force. The Earth fleet spread out in a complex formation that had never been used outside of simulations. It was designed to create multiple attack vectors while protecting the ships carrying the deadly Nova weapons. Voidborn fleet is responding, Layla reported. They're forming a defensive sphere around their largest vessels. Reed studied the enemy formation. Unlike before, the Voidborn weren't rushing to attack. They had learned caution after their first encounter with humans. "They're adapting," Reed said with grudging respect. "Tau Strike Force, are you ready?" "Ready, Commander." Lear's voice came through the comm. "My ships await your signal." Reed took a deep breath. "Begin Operation Fury." The battle unfolded like a deadly dance. The main Earth fleet charged forward, their weapons blazing at the Voidborn defensive line. The alien vessels responded with their space-distorting energy weapons, creating zones of warped reality that swallowed anything that entered. Under cover of this frontal assault, the Tau ships, faster and more maneuverable than their human allies, swooped around the edges of the battlefield. They carried the biological countermeasure Ben had developed, their mission to deliver it directly to the heart of the Voidborn fleet. The cost was horrific. Dozens of Earth ships vanished in the first minutes of battle, caught in the Voidborn's weapons. The Tau Strike Force lost a third of their vessels before even reaching their target area. But slowly, the plan began to work. The Tau ships that made it through released their payload, clouds of the synthetic compound that looked like nothing more than debris from destroyed vessels. The Voidborn, true to their nature, extended their feeding tendrils to consume this material. "Compound delivered," Lear reported, his voice strained. "Losses heavy but acceptable." Reed watched the tactical display, waiting for signs that the countermeasure was working. Minutes passed, seeming like hours as the battle raged. "Commander," Ben called from his station, "I'm detecting changes in the Voidborn biosignatures. The compound is affecting them." On the view screen, several of the alien vessels began to move erratically. Their organic hulls appeared to bubble and distort, sections breaking away like diseased tissue. "Now," Reed ordered. "Nova deployment teams move into position." 3 specially modified Earth battleships broke formation, accelerating toward gaps in the Voidborn defensive line. They carried weapons that had not been used since the darkest days of human conflict, weapons that could destroy entire worlds. "Sir," communications called out. "We're receiving a transmission from the Voidborn flagship. They're attempting to communicate." Reed paused, surprised. "Put it through." The main screen filled with a strange shifting pattern of light and color, the Voidborn equivalent of language. The ship's computer struggled to translate, finally producing broken speech. "Stop destruction. We negotiate. First resistance encountered. Impressed." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Tell them we will cease fire if they withdraw from Tau space immediately and return all consumed materials." The response came quickly. "Cannot return. Consumed. Need for survival. Will leave territory." "Not good enough," Reed replied. "You've destroyed entire civilizations. Billions of lives. Life. Replaceable. Resources. Needed." Reed looked around at his officers, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. "No. Life is not replaceable, and you will learn that some life fights back." He cut the transmission and turned to tactical. "Nova teams, execute." The 3 battleships released their deadly cargo, small, sun-bright objects that accelerated toward the heart of the Voidborn fleet. When they detonated, they didn't simply explode. They collapsed, creating miniature black holes that existed for mere seconds, long enough to tear apart anything within their gravitational grasp. A third of the Voidborn fleet vanished instantly, drawn into these artificial singularities. The rest, already weakened by the biological countermeasure, began to break formation, attempting to flee. "All ships advance," Reed ordered. "No mercy." The combined Earth-Tau fleet surged forward, weapons firing continuously. The Voidborn, for the first time, were in full retreat. 2 weeks later, Commander Reed stood on the observation deck of the Terra Nova, watching as the surviving ships of Earth's fleet prepared for the journey home. Beyond them, Tau vessels moved. In formation, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of a nearby star. Ambassador Nix joined him, moving more comfortably now in the reduced gravity of the observation deck. "The last Voidborn ships have fled beyond the outer rim," Nix said. "Our long-range sensors detect no signs of their return." Reed nodded. They've learned that not all life in this galaxy is easy prey. My people will never forget what Earth has done, Nick said quietly. The Deathworlders came when we called, and brought fury unlike anything we had imagined. Reed turned to look at the ambassador. Is that how the galaxy will see us now? Bringers of fury? No, Nix replied thoughtfully. Defenders. Protectors. The species that evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day and instead of becoming conquerors, became guardians. As the fleet prepared to depart, Reed thought about the future. Humanity had revealed its full military might to the galaxy for the first time. Some civilizations would fear them more than ever. Others, like the Tau, would seek alliance. The balance of power had shifted, but one thing was certain. The galaxy now knew that attacking those who called Earth home, or those under Earth's protection, would awaken a fury that not even the Void could withstand. The Deathworlders had risen, and the stars themselves would remember.